In my recent videos, I asked you guys to email me any scary stories that have happened to you in real life. I've been getting a lot of really creepy stories that I plan to read in future videos, so keep them coming if you have any you want to share. But thrown in with all of those stories, there was one that really appalled me. It was a stalking story, but not from a victim, from the actual stalker. And he doesn't feel sorry for it at all. In fact, he flat out told me that he thinks being a serial stalker would be fun. He actually sent me photo evidence of himself stalking women. Some of them are too disturbing to show on YouTube, but I'm going to have one on screen now of him holding up a piece of paper with his email written on it to prove he's actually doing this. I have to warn you that the emails I'm about to read are extremely disturbing. Based on the actual evidence of him stalking and the way he speaks, I don't think it's a fictional story. I genuinely believe this guy will end up killing a lot of people in the future. I know he's watching this video, so listen up, you sick fuck. I already reported everything to the police. They have your email address, the photos, and all the info. So if you weren't careful about leaving digital footprints, you're done, and I hope you rot in prison. I think reporting him might have put me at risk, because this man sounds like he's capable of anything. I wanted to get this video out to you guys, because I think the world has to hear this, but I couldn't just capitalize off of it and let this man keep doing what he's doing without trying to stop him. Anyway, we exchanged a few emails, and I'm going to be reading everything he sent me. Here's what he had to say. Hello, Mr. Hockey Mask. I'm a longtime subscriber, and I'm happy to see you uploading again. I watched your recent stalker videos where you asked us viewers to submit our stories. I assume you wanted to hear stories from victims, but I have something different for you, something better. I'm not a victim. I'll never be anyone's victim in this disgusting world. I thought you'd be interested in hearing my perspective, the other perspective, the perspective of an actual stalker who's been successfully doing this for a long time. I consider myself a pro stalker. Ha ha. And I know how to terrify my objects. The stories you read in your recent videos were really vanilla. Those guys are amateurs who don't know how to do it right. But I was very pleased to hear that even such amateurish actions get the objects terrified. But I'm not one of those people who just stalks girls from social media to try to hook up with them. No. I get enjoyment out of mentally terrorizing my objects. I'm attaching photos of my objects with my email address on a piece of paper as proof. I'm not here to convince you that what I'm saying is real. You can make up your own opinion about that. Get back to me if you're interested in hearing my story. I knew you'd want to hear more from me. You asked a lot of personal questions. Are you the police? Ha ha. I'm joking. I think I can trust you. I'm sure you are at least a little bit sick. Funny, they call us that, to be making the content you are making. I'll try to reveal as much as I can without revealing too much. I won't tell you my exact age, but I'm not young. I'm also not too old. People say my age is the best age for a man, but I disagree. I think my prime is long gone. I live in the South, in a rural area, but I'm close to a bigger city, and my objects are usually from there. I don't stalk anyone in my little town, because it's easier to stay invisible in a big city. The police there also have bigger problems to deal with than a stalker. I think that's why I'm still a free man. Most stalkers seem lazy and stalk only women in their proximity, but I take it seriously. I actually have a very good reputation, and I'm well respected in my area. I find it entertaining to think about how people around the world would react if they found out about my little hobby. If the police interrogated my neighbors, they'd all probably stand behind me and mislead the police, because there's no way they'd believe I'd do this. Throughout my life, I learned how to get people to do exactly what I want. I love manipulation. I can't even describe how entertaining manipulation is to me. I love projecting a total opposite image of who I am, because these idiots eat it all up and I can fuck with them. I act very friendly, kind, and like an upstanding guy. I have a high-paying job, solid education, and I help people around me. I do this only so they help me back, and I try to do the bare minimum to satisfy them. But ironically, those idiots think I'm a people's person. even though deep down I'd love to go on a killing spree. That day will come one day, but not just yet. I'll probably do it once I get bored of doing what I do now, but I don't want to go to prison. I don't know much about the prison system, but I don't think inmates would respond well to a stalker. When I go on a killing spree and I get caught, they'll probably just execute me, and if they don't, I'm sure inmates won't fuck with an insane person who's in there for killing as many people as I plan on killing. Anyway, more about me. I'm introverted, and I prefer being alone, but I can be very extroverted if I have to, even though I find no enjoyment in socializing. I only do it if it can benefit me. I usually tend to control my urge to agonize others in everyday life, but sometimes I can't help it. If I want to agonize anyone in real life, I usually target those who are disliked by everyone. You'll see why soon. I do this by making small talking, pretending I'm interested in them and eventually befriending them. After I befriend them, I usually ask them for some senseless favor. For some reason, disliked people love doing favors for others. The short-term reward from this is that I get pleasure knowing that they are wasting their time for me. But I have long-term reasons as well. People are more likely to ask you for a favor if you ask them first, because then they feel like you owe them and are more likely to help them out if they need it. I find a way to help them, then after some time ask for a bigger favor, and repeat until they feel like I'm their close friend. This process usually lasts shorter than you'd think, because disliked people tend to rely fully on that one person that does the most for them, which is me. Once I get them where I want, I betray them as hard as I can. I usually start to mistreat them without any warnings. Imagine this. Someone is really nice to them and becomes their best friend in a period of just a few months. He becomes the only person you trust, and then one day, just start to speak to them in an aggressive tone. Start calling them bad names and so on. That would fuck with a person's head, wouldn't it? Then you escalate it by totally cutting them off and start spreading horrible fake rumors about them. Since they were disliked to begin with, and I'm respected in the community, people believe me and start hating that person even more. I usually tell one or two of my go-to local gossipers something like, "Damn, you won't believe what I'm about to tell you. You know, me and X became quite good friends. I noticed that everyone disliked him and I felt bad for him because I didn't know him, so I wanted to give him a chance. At first, he looked like a decent guy, but it turns out he's blah blah blah. You know what I found out? You know what he did? We were drinking together and he got really drunk, so he started confessing. He said, blah blah blah, and I just make up something that makes them look horrible. This has a triple effect. First effect is that people will start hating the person, and everybody will believe me over him, even if he'll try to defend himself, because nobody cares about the truth if the lie is more entertaining. So my object starts to suffer. Second effect is that he won't be able to comprehend why I did what I did, and more often than not, people will blame themselves for it. They'll think that they are worthless because they fucked it up even with that one person that showed them some appreciation, and they won't be able to figure out why. The third effect is that my reputation in the community gets even better, because people will see me as the kind of person with a good heart that tried to give the local outcast a chance, but was unfortunately too blind to see his true colors, which makes me appear weak, which is a good thing, because a nice, weak guy would never be a stalker or a killer, right? I did this only a handful of times to this extent because I can't overdo it, or people might start questioning if it happens too frequently. I did it a few times in my community and a few times in my workplace. One time I did it to a guy from my neighborhood who was suicidal, and I went so hard on him he actually ended up killing himself. Haha, good times. Hey again. I knew you would find my story interesting. So back to who I am. I usually stay on my computer and I don't have any hobbies besides stalking. I also take acting classes, but that's only to practice acting for manipulation. I also run and work out, but that's just to be more athletic for stalking, because oftentimes I have to run, climb, and so on. I have a PhD. That also helps me with manipulation, but I won't specify that. The smarter percentile will probably figure that one out. I think humans are pieces of trash and deserve to be wiped out. That's the reason why I started with this whole thing. I want to contribute as much as my abilities allow me to ruin humanity. I think that's the best deed anyone can do. I believe God would probably want someone to destroy his most flawed creation. Even before my first action, I knew this would eventually turn into me killing people. They tell you to be nice. They tell you to be kind. They tell you to be good. But then they do the exact opposite. I'm convinced people are telling each other to be like that just because they want to make others less of a threat to their own selfish plans. I'm still not sure if I'll just start kidnapping people one by one, torturing them, and then murdering them or what. I've never actually kidnapped anyone before, so I need to figure out how to do it so I don't get caught. Maybe I can start with a homeless person since nobody cares about them. You know what's funny? When I do all of this and they finally catch me, I'll confess to everything and I'll be a celebrity. I'll be praised and glorified. Not that I want fame, but I find it hilarious and comforting that people like me get this kind of attention. Look at Jeffrey Dahmer, for example. He became a celebrity. People are fascinated by him. People give him so much attention. Companies are making millions off of his name. Even you made a video about him that became one of your highest viewed videos. But society wants me to believe it sees him as a monster. Idiots. I'm not naive. This leads me to think that deep down, everyone wants to be like me. Everyone wants to cause terror. Everyone wants to kill. They are just too scared. The government officials probably know about this, and they created this prison system to scare us away from fulfilling our deepest passions. The passion to kill. The passion to terrorize. The passion to destroy. The passion to conquer. They punish you for killing and simultaneously drop bombs on countries that don't pose a threat to them and kill children that didn't even learn to speak yet. There's so much death and suffering behind every successful person. Every person that reached the top of the social hierarchy as a leader did so through killing and conquering. But when an average person finally acts up on their innate urge to cause harm, they throw them into an environment where this urge gets to develop even further, which causes even more killing. But they want me to believe they're against killing? Doesn't seem like it. Why do they try to turn us into non-violent sheep from a young age? But as soon as we show signs that it didn't work, they throw us into an environment where we get to develop our true selves and keep us in there forever. Killing that happens there doesn't concern them. But I'm getting off topic. In my next email, I'll tell you more about some of the stalking I've done. You'll find it really funny how scared some of the people get. I stalk both men and women. For many stalkers, stalking is in a way a sexual thing, but not for me. I do it purely to cause terror and agony. It's so funny seeing the look of terror on a person's face. I enjoy stalking men more, especially so-called tough guys. They are usually the worst kind of people anyway, so it feels like I'm accomplishing some greater good by returning to them all the harm they cause to others. I find it funny how they walk around looking tough, but turn into scared puppies as soon as I start hunting them. Women are too easy to scare, so it's not as much fun. You can knock on a woman's window or anything subtle like that, and they'll instantly panic. A man won't believe he has a stalker until he has to believe it. I'm kind of careful about going after men though, because it's riskier. There were a few instances that could have ended badly for me. For example, this one time I kept throwing rocks at one guy's house to freak him out a little. He was my new object, so I didn't know much about his behavior. I didn't know how he would react, and after a few minutes, he came out of the house with a shotgun, yelling and saying stuff like, "Whoever's out there, get the hell off of my property." It's honestly funny to see guys react like that. They think they're so tough, but you can tell they're really panicking. I really wanted to terrify that guy, because he was the definition of a wannabe tough guy asshole. So I fucked with him afterwards by destroying his property. You know, throwing bigger rocks to break the windows and stuff like that. But that's soft. I wanted to have more fun than that. So I decided to start putting threatening messages in his mail when he was at work. At first, I kept it light, telling him I knew who he was and that I was going to put him in his place. I found it really funny imagining him trying to figure out who put that message there. The next message, I made fun of his appearance and his habits, and just putting him down in general. I did that for a while, and when I felt like I was starting to destroy his own tough guy image of himself, I started to encourage him towards suicide. After a while, his property stopped being maintained. There were weeds all over the front yard, and it looked like the grass never got cut. So I was pretty excited. But unfortunately, I never found out if he actually did it or if he just went on a long vacation. If you want to know how I don't get caught, I've learned a few things over the years. 1. I always have a good escape plan. I always park my truck a few streets away from the house and bike to the object's house so I can just bike back to my truck, throw the bike in the back, and drive off. The person can't catch up to me when I'm on a bike, and they have no clue I have a car. So when they call the police, they most likely tell them I'm on a bike, so the cops are looking for bikes. But by the time the cops are near me, I'm already in my car driving. 2. I usually wear a dark blue camouflage sweatsuit for my actions. I use dark blue because it's actually more effective than black clothes at night. Black clothes are way darker than the environment. The environment isn't pitch black because of light pollution and moonlight, so dark blue clothes match the hue of the environment more and make you less visible. Because pure black actually stands out at night. It looks like a dark black hole in a not as dark environment, whereas dark blue blends into it. 3. I exercise a lot. My athletic abilities, combined with my fast biking, combined with how fast I start up the car and drive off, makes me uncatchable. I can bike back to my truck and be miles away by the time the police show up. I usually stalk my objects through their windows for an extended period of time. Then I start scaring them by either throwing rocks at the house or knocking on the windows. On average, it takes them about 3 minutes to decide to call the police if they don't spot me. But if they spot me, I have around 30 seconds of fun before I escape. Sometimes I let myself be spotted. I usually don't even need to take a weapon, but in some cases I'll have a knife just in case. Just a mask is enough to scare most people. They hear a tapping on their window and they look outside, and they see a man in a mask standing there waving at them. After they spot me, I tend to break their windows to make them think I'm going inside. This is the most fun if they're in the same room as the window I'm breaking, and if they are already on the phone with 911. The pure sound of terror when they scream that I'm trying to get inside with a knife and kill them is priceless. I guess that's about it. I don't know what else to tell you. Ask me some more questions if you have any, but you already asked plenty, and I wrote even more. I hope you publish this, and maybe some woke people will follow my footsteps. It really feels good to finally be able to share my stories with someone. I was holding this inside of me for years. Thanks for listening to me and asking intriguing questions. I wish I knew someone like you in real life. I sent this to you instead of the other horror channels because of the over-the-top way you present your videos and your topics. I can tell you're really into this stuff. Okay, I'll tell you the most fun story I have. Brace yourself. It was the only time I stalked a person that actually knew the real me. It was a 22-year-old college girl who did an internship at the company I worked for. I won't bore you about the long background story, but basically, I chatted with her every once in a while at work. I hate all people, but for some reason, I started liking this young girl. She genuinely felt like a nice and selfless person, but she ended up hurting me like they all do, and turned out to be just like everyone else I ever met. Typical. This was definitely the last time I put myself into that position. She killed my last hope for humanity. Anyway, I knew I needed to take revenge, so I decided to do what I do best. I knew I had to make this good, so I started out slowly. I found out where she lived from company files, and it turns out she lived in an apartment building on the ground floor with a roommate. Jackpot. First night I went to her apartment, I was just lightly tapping her windows. I did this about 5 times in 20-minute intervals. At first, I wasn't sure if she even noticed, because her behavior didn't change much. But after the 5th time, she had to notice, and she opened her window to look around, but she didn't see me. This was my cue. I had to retreat. I left her alone for 2 weeks and then did the same thing. Then again after a week. I didn't want her to know that she had a stalker immediately. I left her alone for 3 weeks, and then I went to her apartment again during the day. This time I went inside the building. I got in by ringing the doorbell of neighbors on the upper floor because her apartment building had mailboxes inside, so I just yelled "mail" when they picked up the doorbell phone. Those idiots open up 99% of the time, so if you ever want to break into someone's apartment building, there's a good tip for you. I banged a few times really hard on her door and ran off. I went to a cafe and did it again after 3 hours before going home. I did this again in 2 weeks. I was observing her at work, and she wasn't showing any signs of distress, which was good in this case, because I wanted her to connect the dots later. She still had no idea what was really happening. I left her alone for 2 weeks and decided to start slipping notes under her door. The first note I slipped said, "I love you." I didn't want her and her roommate to know which of them I was targeting just yet, but I revealed it in the next note I slipped under her door the next week. It said, "I want you," her full name. When I saw her at work the next day, she was clearly in distress, so I left her alone for a month. After a month, I slipped another note. It said, "I want to be with you, and your roommate can join in on the fun. Actually, she won't have a choice." I wanted to make them think I'd rape both of them. The only time I've ever done that was in college when it was really easy to get girls drunk and then take advantage of them. But unfortunately, it's harder than you think to just break into someone's house and do it when they're already on high alert. I didn't do anything for 2 weeks, and then I came back at 3 in the morning, broke the window in her room, and threw in a big pink dildo with a note taped to it, and then I ran off. The note said, "Open her up for me. I'm coming soon. You will love it. Trust me." It probably sounds kind of funny when you read it in an email, but this is the kind of thing that really creeps a person out when it's happening in real life, because it's so bizarre that they just don't know how to handle it. Then I disappeared for a month again. During this month, I saw she was starting to change. She wasn't this happy little girl anymore. I introduced her to the pain of life, and it was visible. Both her and her roommate actually ended up moving to a new apartment, so I knew I was deep in her head. I found out her new address the next week, which was kind of funny, since it was so easy to get the information since she worked at my company, and she had no idea. So I went to scout out the place. Her apartment was on a higher floor, and they had cameras in the complex, so my options became limited. Their mailboxes were also on the outside, so I couldn't get in that easily. I had to escalate it soon. I went there in a hoodie and sunglasses, and I slipped a note in her mail. I wrote a long and elaborate letter, but the most important part was the beginning. It said, "You think I wouldn't find you? Ha ha. Silly you. I'm coming soon to take what's mine. I hope you practice for me as I told you, my love." Then I let this sit for a month. I started planning the big day, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. I just had to figure out how to do it safely. I think a higher power wanted me to do this because I hit another jackpot. At work, I overheard her chatting with other female coworkers, and she mentioned that she was going out that Friday and that her roommate was out of town, so she planned on having some fun if she gets lucky. That bitch. Promiscuous girls really deserve whatever they get. When Friday came, I camped out near her apartment complex to see if she ended up bringing a man home. It was a cold and rainy day, so those 5 hours I spent there were hell on earth, but I knew that if she returned home alone, it would be worth it. I saw a cab pull up around 4 a.m. Please be her. I was reassured that I'm truly achieving a greater good, because I was blessed again. She got out of the cab, and she was alone. This was my time. I started sprinting towards her, and by the time she turned around, I was close to her, so there was no running away. I jumped at her and tackled her to the ground. I started taking off her clothes. She was screaming and begging me to stop. I never experienced a bigger rush in my life. When her jacket was a little torn up and her pants were down to her knees, I just pushed a note into her jeans pocket and left. The note said, "I'm just teasing you, my sweet baby girl, but next time you see me, I will finally bless you the way you deserve it." It was hilarious. I couldn't wait to get back to work on Monday to see her. Monday came, but she wasn't there. Tuesday, she wasn't there. Wednesday, she wasn't there. Maybe she took a week off to calm down. But the next week came, and she still wasn't there. I anticipated her return for a month, but she just wasn't there. I had enough, so I decided I had to find out what happened to her. I was on good terms with one of her co-workers, and the two of them were good friends. So I went up to her for some small talk, and mid-conversation, I casually asked her, "By the way, what happened to the young intern? Haven't seen her in a while." She looked down and stayed silent for a while, but then she said, "She had to leave work. She wasn't doing too well." I said, "You sound serious. You guys were kind of close, right? You always ate lunch together. I bet you're hiding something from me." She finally confessed. "Look, that's her business. I won't talk about it in detail, but I'll tell you. Just don't ask me any questions about it, all right?" I promised I wouldn't. She told me that something really bad happened to her and that she broke down and had to check into a mental hospital. I acted very sympathetic, but deep down I was filled with joy. I didn't even have to think about it, and I knew right away what's my next step. I gathered addresses of every single mental hospital in the city. There were 5 of them. I wrote a letter, copied it, put it in 5 envelopes, and wrote, "Stay strong, Mom," on every single one of them. Then I mailed it to each mental hospital in the city. I knew she got it. She was born in this city and lived there all her life. Her family was here as well. There's no way she'd be in a different town. I haven't seen her since, but I didn't need to. I knew I'll be living inside her head until the day she dies. Alright guys, it's me, Mr. Hockey Mask. That was the last email from the guy. I probably could have got more out of him, but I really wanted to get this video up because I think it's something that people need to know about. And to be honest, I was just really creeped out and didn't want to keep going through it by myself. I don't know how he'll react when he sees this video. If he wanted me to post it, or if he actually thought I was some sick asshole who would become friends with him. But I really hope he doesn't do anything to me for posting this if he thought I was going to keep it private. Like I said, I don't know how much of this story is true, but he sent those stalking photos as proof, and he went into a lot of detail that I don't think people would know if they weren't doing that stuff. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. If he emails me again, I'll make another video to let you know what he says.